rain tapped against the rusted roof of an old storage lot as Sam leaned on his cane, Baxter pressed close at his side. He had $38.50 empty can of beans in his pack. Not exactly fortune, but he'd wandered into an auction anyway. People shouted over one another, bidding on broken furniture and forgotten junk. When Unit 117 came up and nobody else raised a hand, Sam did something that surprised even him. He called out the only number he had. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but the auctioneer knocked the gavel and the unit was his. The door groaned open to mildew and dust. Inside were shadows, a collapsed shelf, a rusted bike, and tucked away behind the debris, an old trunk carved with strange markings. Baxter's low growl turned Sam's hand careful. The lock was fused with rust. It took a crowbar and a little patience before it gave. When the lid eased back, packed inside were yellowing envelopes, a few faded photos, and a heavy brass key stamped with the number 12. On the outside of one envelope was a name that hit Sam like a memory: Eleanor Reeves. He'd heard about her long ago, a real estate titan who'd disappeared amid scandal. The letters inside were written in an elegant hand. One line chilled him: "If you're reading this, the truth has been buried long enough. The key unlocks what they took from me. Trust no one." Sam shoved the papers and the key into his bag. Outside, a shadow crossed the doorway, someone watching. When he stepped out, there was no one left but him and the rain. Sam and Baxter camped under an overpass that night. He spread the letters out, tracing deeds and revoked transfer forms. Someone had stolen Eleanor Reeves's holdings before she vanished. The discovery shouldn't have been his problem, he told himself, but the papers felt like a charge. The next day at the public library, he dug through records, and when a woman in a grey suit brushed past and dropped a folder labeled Reeves Estate Holdings, Sam picked it up without thinking. Inside were references to a network of storage units, Unit 117 included. It wasn't random. Someone had hidden things for a reason. That evening, two men in a black sedan found him behind a diner. They were dressed too well for that part of town and spoke like men who expected to be obeyed. They offered money for what he'd found. Sam refused. Baxter's barking and his own steady refusal were enough to convince them to back off for now, though they warned him he'd hear from them again. The papers included a map with an X by the river. Sam followed it to a derelict warehouse at the edge of town, brass key clenched in his palm. The lock clicked open, and inside, beneath dust and crates, was a safe marked with an R inside a circle. The brass key slid into place and the door opened to reveal stacks of documents, wrapped coins and a small velvet box. Inside the box lay a simple, engraved necklace with the initials ER. Before Sam could savor the find, a motion sensor blinked red and a black SUV cut down the road. He grabbed what he could and ran, the SUV's headlights slicing the rain. He lost them in alleys and hid in the city's shadows, clutching a bundle of deeds that smelled of mildew and old ink. The more he read, the more the name Eleanor Reeves followed him. A woman who had once shown kindness when he needed it most, and whose disappearance had left a city hollowed at the edges. Sam took the papers to an address printed on one of the sealed envelopes: the Reeves Foundation for Community Development. Inside the marble lobby, a woman with striking green eyes met him. She introduced herself as Margaret Reeves, Eleanor's granddaughter. When Sam handed over the documents, Margaret's expression moved through shock to tears. These were original deeds, she said. Her family had been fighting for decades to reclaim what was theirs. Sam had just handed them the proof, but the men in black suits were persistent. When they burst into the foundation claiming to be security contractors, and tried to seize Sam. Margaret stepped between them and threatened to call the police. They left that time, but it was clear someone powerful wanted those papers back. Margaret insisted Sam stay with the foundation for safety. He was reluctant, but she offered a spare room and shelter from the rain. For the first time in years, he slept in a proper bed while Baxter curled on a rug. The next days were tense. The police investigated a supposed break-in at the warehouse. Sam and Margaret suspected an inside leak. Someone knew more than they should. They moved the documents to a law firm for safekeeping, and Sam volunteered to help transport them. Halfway through, the black car trailed them. Sam steered them through side streets toward the old shipyard, where he'd bounced between survival and cunning for years. When the pursuers stopped and two armed men stepped out, Sam trusted instinct over fear. He kicked an oil drum down a slope. It smashed into their car, and in the ensuing scuffle he tackled one assailant, while Baxter latched onto the other's leg. The police arrived in time to take the would-be thieves into custody. Margaret had the evidence handed over to lawyers and the press. Sam insisted he didn't want money or fame. He'd done what felt right, but she wouldn't let him return to the streets. She gave him a deed, a small workshop with an apartment attached, so he could build a steady life. He accepted, awkwardly, as if trying on an unfamiliar role. Even with the big break, Sam couldn't shake the sense that there was more. One of Eleanor's letters mentioned a truth beneath the city and implied the necklace wasn't jewelry but a key. Guided by that clue, Sam visited the old Reeves Tower at night and found a sealed sublevel. The necklace fit into a slot beside a basement door. The mechanism surrendered and the stairs spiraled down. Beneath the tower, in a dust-filled chamber, Sam uncovered a sealed metal box stamped Reeves Foundation, 1958. Inside were records that weren't building plans, but irrefutable documentation, forged contracts, fraudulent land transfers, lists of collaborators who'd gripped the city's development. Eleanor had been collecting proof of the crimes committed against her and the community. Proof they'd stolen and covered up for decades. As he gathered the files, footsteps clattered above. The same thugs who'd been tailing him now came down to force him to surrender the documents. Bullets rattled off concrete. Sam used the environment to his advantage. A wrench on a leaking valve sent hot steam filling the room, giving him cover to incapacitate attackers. He fought and wore them down. Baxter was at his side every step. Exhausted, soaked and bruised, Sam staggered back to Margaret with the evidence. When the files hit the right hands and the reporters started asking questions, the corruption unraveled. Powerful figures fell as the records exposed decades of deceit and theft. The city buzzed with the story of how forgotten deeds had been recovered and wrongs corrected. Margaret publicly credited an unnamed man who'd found the documents. Sam kept his distance, preferring the quiet of his new workshop. Life settled into an easier rhythm. Sam fixed radios and heaters, repurposed scraps into useful things, and quietly donated what he could to shelters. The foundation named a plaque near the Reeves Tower honoring people who had nothing but gave everything. And under it, small letters acknowledged Sam Turner and his loyal companion Baxter. It made him laugh. Recognition felt strange after a life spent invisible. Years later, Sam still walked the same streets, but they greeted him differently. Children learned his story in school. Sometimes a stranger would offer a sandwich that he'd passed to someone else. Baxter grew drier and slower, but the warmth between them never faded. Margaret stopped by sometimes, leaving tokens of thanks, a pair of silver dog tags one night that read Baxter and Sam Turner, honorary partner, Reeves Foundation. When he sat by the river at dusk, listening to the city hum, Sam reflected on how a single, impulsive 38 bid had changed everything. He'd found more than money in an old trunk. He'd found a purpose and a place to belong. With Baxter at his feet, the city lights popping on like stars, he felt finally at home.